this next part of our series, we're going to be looking at those stubborn ITB or iliotibial band complaints that a lot of runners will come in with. Again, when we're looking at any of these sort of situations, there are multiple reasons as to why they can be taking place. However, for the purposes of right now and some useful techniques to take away, we're going to just look at the common areas that we find will be influenced when there's an IT band discomfort or irritability happening. And we'll know that, the old school way of thought is thinking, let's just foam roll this IT band out. So, well, moving forward, we now know the IT band is a piece of structural tissue. It doesn't deform, it doesn't stretch, it doesn't change shape. It is there because it helps us stand upright and it gives us stability into our hips and our legs. With that said, though, we can work with structures that feed in fascially into IT band. And by this, I mean we can look at the lateral hip, which is where the IT band will originate from. And then we can also look down the lateral aspect of the upper leg or the thigh. So you're looking at the lateral aspect of the quadriceps and the hamstrings. We have a few techniques at our disposal, and one of them is actually going to start with one of our best palpitation tools, and that's compression. So just working through the towel, I'm gently, not directly on top of the IT band, I'm coming actually behind it. So I'm trying to look at creating this almost like C-shape look as I am palpating and compressing through the sort of lateral aspect of his hamstrings and on the edge of the IT band. Because remember, it's a really sensitive area. But I'm also making sure that I'm not just pushing into the bone and into the femur, that I'm sort of going up and over the apex. I'm following that curve of the leg itself. Now, for the purposes of this, I would also come around and do it from the other side. So we quite easily want to make sure that you take that global approach with what you're doing. Then we're going to look at some Petrissage and maybe even some Effleurage as well at the same time here. Now, what you'll notice here is it looks like that I will be directly on his IT band. I'm actually not. So my pressure itself is sort of like this dome shape. And I'm on either side of that IT band. So I'm hitting the quadriceps and the hamstrings. So I can do it from that position, or I can also do it from above if it's not going to compromise my posture here. Good. And then we can dive straight into a little bit of Petrissage. So I'm really thinking about trying to pick up that tissue and create this lovely S shape with my Petrissage. Again, being mindful that I'm not applying pressure directly to the IT band. The IT band is really sensitive. It's full of nerves. We're trying to affect the tissue that feeds into it, the malleable stuff. Great. Then from this point, again, I might just go back in with a little bit of palpation and compression to see if there has been a bit of change with that tissue or not. But then we can also look a little bit further afield and go up to the lateral hip, which is an area that I find, especially in teaching as well, that we can struggle with of how do we cope with working with the glutes and the lateral hip. And side lying is such a great way to address this and to apply various different types of techniques. Now, I tend not to do any compression using my hands in this position. I will use my forearm. And because what we've mentioned in a previous video is that as soon as you do something that's a little bit deeper and more specific, which my forearm will be, I need to go slower and be more mindful with what my pressure is doing and my speed as well. Remembering that we have the lateral hip fans out. So I'm going to need to change my direction of my pressure and how I apply my compression here. I'm going to start off with working in around for that TFL glute med area. I'm just gently going to come in. My pressure is coming away from the hip joint itself, their greater trochanter, and pulling away and that downward force with my compression. I'm also going to ask my client to make sure that they're okay and they're not wincing. Paul, are you okay with that pressure?
Yes.
Okay, good. And it's just, again, being very mindful. Again, because as the glutes will drop away from, or exposing maybe some more nerves in and around this lateral hip, again, we need to be mindful that as we go in, it might be, again, more sensitive. And as I start to come around this C shape of the hip, I'm actually going to change my applicator or change which arm I use. But in this position as well, I could add in a little bit of soft tissue release. So I need to set my client up for this next technique. And it's going to be an active soft tissue release as such. So all I'm going to get Paul to do is, Paul, when I ask you to, I'm going to get you just to lift your leg this way, just ever so slightly when I ask you to. And I will tend to put a little bit of resistance and guidance on their heel when I do this, because this will help to maintain the speed and make sure that they don't go too far too quickly as well. That's only if I can maintain my posture at the same time. So I've identified here that I want to apply a little bit of a stretch to sort of the upper glutes. And from here, I'm just going to gently sink in, take up my lock. I'm going to essentially be asking Paul to do an internal rotation with his femur or his thigh. So Paul, just gently feed that heel up towards the ceiling and into my finger here. Good. And then gently back down. So the movement shouldn't actually be that big. So once you get that lock, essentially you're restricting the amount that they can move. Good, and push up again. That's it. Good, and gently back down. Wonderful. So I might repeat that as many times as needed until I feel maybe a bit of a change in the quality of the tissue. But I'm also very mindful that I don't overcook the area as well. And we can use STR in other areas as well, around the hip or around the thigh as well.